you for connecting on time every week. I'm Romain Poirot, partner at French Media. If you just found out about us, we are the leading publication for Americans in France and Americans in love with French culture. During this session, we'll see how to start and run a business in France with the insights from a French CPA, Loïc Le Bail from L2A Advisory. He has over 10 years of experience working with international companies from the accounting and tax compliance of their French businesses. With Loïc, I'm proud to say we have 3 points in common. We're both married. We both recently became fathers, and we love to play golf. So that should be perfect to start today. Loïc will also share his screen with us very soon, so you can get really like a global, presentation to cover all the most important points and topics for the day. We are also live on YouTube and Zoom. The goal is to answer as many questions as we can today. So feel free to ask questions as well on Zoom or on YouTube. The goal is to answer all of them. Take this opportunity. Loïc, I'll let you introduce yourself. You just share your screen. You can put it in full screen and we're good to go. Really, I'll be back to ask any questions you guys have in the audience. Also, to make it a bit more entertaining, if you can share in the chat where you guys are connecting from. Are you in the US? Are you in the UK? Are you in Australia? Last week, we had people from pretty much all over the world. So let us know. It's also helpful to better answer your questions. Loïc, the floor is yours. I'll be back to ask you any questions from the audience.
All right, thank you very much, Romain. So thank you for the introduction. So I'm pleased indeed to be the host of the webinar today for like a quite difficult topic, but that many of you may be interested in, which is how to start and run a business in France. So I'm here to give you insight from French CPA, which is what I am with my partner. And you will see within this webinar that in France, CPAs are more or less like the general practitioner of businesses, meaning that compared to other jurisdictions where CPAs kind to limit themselves only to accounting and tax duties, in France, we like to go a little bit beyond that. And in general, when someone wants to open a business or have a question about something related to business, he would go to his CPA. So that's, well, more or less, we have 1 hour today, and I'm going to be your digital CPA for the day. So feel free to ask any of your questions. As Romain told you, we are here to answer them. If some of them are not answered because of timing issue or they are too complex, you will see our contact details. So do not hesitate to contact me afterwards. I'll be pleased to help you as much as I can. So I'll just quickly give you a little agenda for today. First, of course, I'm going to introduce myself and to present you the firm that I represent, which is L2A Advisory. Then we will go through how to set up a company in France, a company or a business, because we will see that maybe you don't even need actually a company to run your business in France. So you have to consider many different aspects, such as the legal one, the tax aspects. And so I'll show you what are the main issues that you should consider. And then once your company or your business is open, you will see that in France, we are, as we say, the champions in terms of tax. It's sad, but you can consider, for instance, that French people are the one that invented VAT, the sales tax. So we are the champions, meaning that all the compliance that you have to consider in France for a business is quite huge. So of course, I'm not going to be able to go throughout all what you will have to do. The key here, the idea here is to give you some key elements to consider and to show you what exactly you are going to face. And then, of course, as Romain said, we'll have a Q&A session. So if you have, if you have any question within the presentation, feel free to write them, and I think we will answer them at the end of the presentation. It's going to be easy. So who we are, so I'm pleased to represent L2A Advisory with my partner, Alexandre. We are both 2 French CPAs. We are licensed and registered at the French Paris CPA board. We are also legal auditors. I will come back to that afterwards. And so what are we doing? We are an English-speaking accounting, tax, audit, and advisory firm. So we are based in Paris, but we operate remotely in the whole France. So no matter where you're located, we can work together. That's not an issue. Of course, we are used to doing it quite a lot now. We have both started our career at EY, which is one of the big four firms that you may know, like it's a US, UK company actually. So we've been there for a few years, and then we both had some experiences within corporate life. So we were former CFOs. The goal for us was to gain some knowledge in firms and then apply this knowledge to the actual life of our clients so that we can serve them better after. And so that's what we are doing now. Basically, the goal of L2A advisory is to provide big four firms quality of services, meaning that you are coming to us because we are really here to provide with tailored advisory services, but with the more agile approach that you are going to see in small firms in France. And basically, we like to fill the gaps between foreign entrepreneurs in France, which are not going to be that well served by regular CPA firms, and maybe are going to be a little bit too small for the big four firms. And we think that there is some room for us in the middle for you for us to work together. Sorry, so that's where we are. So we provide high quality experience and expertise. And when I'm saying experience, it's also something that we consider, which is in France, you may know that you have the image of coming to a French restaurant and like a French cafe and not being really keen on discussing with the guy that is going to give you your drink. We don't want you to leave this with our accounting profession, so we want to actually give you a client experience that is fulfilling, which is something that you will see more often in the US or like in the Anglo-Saxon world. We want to be close to our clients, and we want to offer a frictionless experience, meaning that we use, of course, digital solution, and we are here to take all the burden of the huge administrative and tax work that you have to face in France so that you can focus on your business. This is the goal for us, is that you don't have to consider to think even about anything about the tax or the accounting or the legal work that you will have to do. That's on our hands. You need to focus on your business. And last, and I'll be done with the presentation of the firm, is that what kind of services do we do? So not only are we a French CPA, so we are going to be able to do bookkeeping, to perform some tax compliance. As I told, we are also here to provide our advisory services, meaning that we provide part-time CFO services. And we also provide advisory on asset management for our clients, and also some audit services, legal audit or specific audit, which we will come afterwards. So now let's dig into today's topic, which is how to set up a company or a business in France. We will actually go through two main subparts for this matter, which is what are going to be the factors that you'll have to consider within the incorporation of your company. So you'll have many factors to deal with. We will see that after in a few seconds. But the key element here is to say that there is no one fits all question when it comes to what kind of company should I open for my business in France. It's going to be the conclusion of many questions that you'll have to ask yourself, that you'll have to discuss with your professional and your trusted advisor. And at the end of this discussion, normally you should have a few options which you will be able to select the best for you. So don't consider that there is one fits for all. It always depends on your situation. What is the projected revenue of the business? Is it going to be a one-time business? Is it going to be something that you will go on for a long time and then to sell afterwards? So that's the first issue. And then who are going to be the key stakeholders that will be involved in the process? Here with Alexander, my partner, we wanted to show you more or less how things are going to be done within the incorporation of your company. Who is going to do what? As you will see, us CPAs, we can do a lot of things. Sometimes we won't be able to do all of it, and some lawyers will have to be involved, which is totally fine. And you will see when it should be done and exactly what are going to be the steps. So coming back to the factors that you have to consider. As I just told you, you will have to think about many aspects of your business and what exactly are you going to do with your company, to choose what is the best options for your legal firm or for your business to be rated. So first and foremost, of course, is it going to be like a huge company or just a small side gig? I don't know. You may be someone living in France and wanted to start like a photograph business with not a full, I mean, a huge potential of business. Maybe you won't actually need to open a company. So what is the projected revenue? This is something that you will have to consider. We'll go through actually for many of them, but what are going to be the number of partners? Basically, some legal firms are available only if you are several partners, someone only if you are one partner, a solopreneur. So of course, it is going to be a significant aspect of the choice that you are going to make regarding the legal structure. Do you plan to hire employees? Because some legal structure are going to be better to do that. In some, you won't even be able to hire employees. So what is the workforce that you plan for your business? Is there any legal constraint? I mean, maybe you're operating like a licensed, a registered professional. So if you're a doctor, maybe you are not going to be able to open this or that kind of legal entity. So you have to consider all of this. And so apart from the legal constraint, indeed, the nature of the business itself is going to dedicate and to help you select a more fitted legal structure. For instance, if you are going to open a real estate business, you should first have a look at all the specific structure that have been built for the real estate project. So many factors will impact the best option to structure the business. The goal is for you to raise this, but basically the professional which you are going to go to normally should ask the questions, and he should be there to help you select the best one. So now let's have a look at some of them. And if you have any question, as Romain told you, just write them down. But you'll see at the very bottom right of each slide a QR code, which is direct link to my planning. So if that's something that you want to come to, you will be able to book some slot in my digital angel. So first question, do you actually need a company? It may sound a little bit silly, but since 2019, a little bit afterward, France wanted to follow the global merge of the economy, which is that more and more people want to build their company, or they just want to launch their own activity. They no longer want to be employed. And in France, what has been the answer to this major economic evolution was the micro-entreprise tax scheme. So that's basically the first entrance into the business world, meaning that if you were an employee before and now you want to open a business, maybe you don't even have to actually open a legal structure, and you can just go through a specific tax scheme. And I insist, it has been considered and built first as a tax scheme, because if we take a little step back here, the legal structure of your company is not one of the only aspect that you have to consider basically when you are going to launch and to choose the right structure for your business in France. You will have to consider the legal point, sorry, the tax point, and the employee, the owner compensation issue as well. So these are the three main subject that you should consider. But for the micro-entreprise itself, actually it answers only the tax and the business entrepreneur compensation, because there is no legal existence of this company. It's just like how to report and basically how to pay tax in France. From a global, also from a higher approach that we can say here, in France, tax are pretty much based on accounting quite a lot, much more than what you will see in other jurisdictions, for instance, as in the US. In France, tax accounting doesn't exist. You do your accounting, and then tax is based on this. So we'll come to this in a few minutes. But what I want to explain here is that some legal structure are going to be good for small companies that won't even need any complex accounting requirements. Sorry. So what I'm talking about when I'm saying that the micro-entreprise taxing could be good for you, basically that's the first level of how to properly run a business, meaning that you are not operating in a blur scheme, you are going to pay tax, you are going to pay social charges. And so you just have to consider that there are some thresholds. If you go above these thresholds, you cannot consider keeping this micro-entreprise scheme. You actually will have to open a company. So when I was thinking about the photographer that would try to open its business in France or like launch its activity, maybe the best option will be to start with this micro-entreprise, and then if things go well, to actually open a company. So there are two main differences of thresholds. The one that applies for the sales and the retail businesses, which is of course a little bit higher because the margin that you take on sales is lower, and the threshold for the services business, which is a little bit lower. So how does it work? If we take a very, very simple example, let's say that I'm going to go with my photographer example. So my photographer is going to clear like 50K of 50,000 euros per year. He's going to pay 21% of social charges on this 50K. And the tax administration is going to consider that, okay, your gross income is 50K. We are going to deduct 50% of that. So your net income is 25K. You are going to pay taxes on 25K. And that's it. Meaning that you don't have any other complexities. But as you can see, this solution has some pros and some cons. It's going to be the easiest one to be open and to be closed. So that's very fit for like trying to open a business. It's going to be also a good option for activity with low expenses, because since you have low expenses, you are going to benefit from this forfeit approach of deducting cost. But you also have some cons, of course. First of all, it is more common for like side gig. It is not a legal structure that you are going to use if you want to open like a real and concrete business. You won't have the credibility to actually have a legal structure beside your own personality, like your physical personality. It is also a poor economic option for business with high expense, because you are going to deduct based on a forfeit, not based on your actual expense. So if I'm taking back my example of my photographer. So he cleared for 50K of revenue on his first years, but he bought, I'm saying nothing here, he bought like a huge equipment that cost him 40K. He's not going to be able to deduct this 40,000 euros of cost, which is silly. He's going to pay some taxes on revenue that he did not even had because of the expenses that he faced. So I wanted to mention this micro-entreprise because we had some question before the webinar started. So this is the first step that you are going to consider if you want to open a business. How to do so? The French Social Security organization is called URSSAF. So there are many information on their website, and also when you want now to create your micro-entreprise, you will have to go through what is called in France the guichet unique, which is a French website that is managed by the French National Statistics Institute. And they are the one that now manage in France all the business creation. So everything has to go through them. So if you have any question about micro-entreprise, it is something that we advise our client to do. It is also something that we help our client to launch and to maintain. Even though it's quite simple, some of our clients wants to be helped, and it is of course what we are here for. So don't hesitate to contact us if you have any question regarding this one. Keeping on what are going to be the factors that you'll have to consider. As I mentioned in my brief introduction, the sector of activity and the way your sector activity is going to affect the business and the legal structure is quite significant in France. It's going to be like one way or the other. Either you are operating in a specific sector for which there are like dedicated legal structure. For instance, real estate in France, we have what we call SCI, Société Civile Immobilière, which is like civilian real estate company. Like it is a specific legal structure that is mostly used and only used for this activity. You're not going to be able to open like a professional services firm with an SCE entity, of course. So you have to consider this. And on the other way, some business ventures are going to be operated only throughout one or another entity. As I told you in my introduction also, in general, it corresponds to some like professional activities that you can operate only throughout one or two dedicated legal structures. So if you are a licensed professional, first and foremost, if you want to make sure that you can operate in France, you'll have to make sure that there are some like some sort of recognition of your diploma so that you can operate. And then you should go to a professional to make sure that you are going to have the right legal structure to do so. Another question is how many partners will be involved, sorry. By how many, of course, you are going to consider who are going to be like the key stakeholder within the company. Am I launching a business with like a friend or a partner? But also something really important to consider is, are you going to raise some capital? Because some, for instance, I'm used to deal with like startup companies also. Venture funds, sorry, they are going to invest only if you have a specific structure. Mostly, I will mention it in the future, but some SAS structure are going to be most commonly used because of the flexibility that they provide. So if you want to raise capital and to like get some investors to go within your company, make sure to have the right legal structure. Otherwise, it's going to be an issue and you will have to transform your company. Another consideration to have is what are your plan for you as your partner compensation? By that I mean, is your company going to like provide you with a regular income? In that case, you should better go with a legal structure that gives the lowest possible social charges. Or is your company like a very long-term gig on which you don't consider to pay yourself for a while, but you accept to like at the closing when you're going to sell your company to get your money, then you should maybe consider some other kind of legal structure. So this is something very important. I will give some explanation on this a little bit after. Last few items that you should consider. Do you plan to hire some employees? Indeed, if I take back my example of the Société Civile Immobilière, you cannot hire anyone if you have this kind of structure. So you should, of course, consider this issue when you are incorporating your company. Will your business involve some equity contribution of different kind? This is something quite particular, meaning that what I'm speaking about here is if you launch a company and apart from the share capital that you are going to inject in cash, you can also participate in the company with some physical or material or other company shares that you are going to grant to obtain some capital, some share capital of the company. In that case, you have to perform some specific audit, and it's going to be available only in specific structures. So just a warning on this: if you open a company, and it's like most common in France to open a company with 1,000 share capital, it's not an issue. If actually let's take an example, you're opening a company to which you are going to grant the shares of a former company that you had. And on this one, you want to collect the equity. It is something very specific that you have to consider. So also make sure to have the right advice on this. The last thing that we can see is that, as I told, you have to consider three things when opening your business: the legal structure, the tax aspect, and the third one that I forgot, but I'm going to come back to the compensation, the business owner compensation. Sorry, some tax aspects are going to be the one that are going to make actually you make the choice of the legal structure, because the way some things work in France will make that you don't have any other choice but to go for this or that legal structure. So that's why you have to keep this like global approach when choosing the right legal form. So now we'll do a quick focus on three main and quite common legal structures actually that we see almost every time, and that if you are considering opening a business in France, I'm quite sure that you have already checked and read some article on this on the web. So you have three main actually for regular business you have two main entities legal structure now, which are SAS and SARL. So more or less you can consider that the SARL is going to be the LLC of the Anglo-Saxon world, and the SAS is going to be like an S corp, but a facilitated S corp, I would say. And the SCI is the example that I gave for the real estate sector. So it's Société Civile Immobilière, only for immobilier, which is real estate in France. So if we have a quick, let's say we'll have a quick match afterwards also on the SAS versus SARL, but as you can see, the nature of business is going to impact the choice. You're not going to be able to have any nature of business in an SCI entity. You have, of course, to have some real estate company, some real estate business, sorry. The tax implication for the SAS and the SRR are going to be more or less the same, even though there are some room for optimization in SIRL. On SCI, the tax implications are going to be quite structurant. You'll have to consider this. There is two possibilities when you open an SCI in French, which is a real estate entity, either to go or as a tax transparent entity, or to go as an entity subject to corporate income tax. It is pretty much not the same thing at all. And if you're not familiar with this, I strongly advise to obtain some guidance on this. If I have sometimes I'll go through, but it's quite too complex to go through it right now. Another big difference between SARL and SAS, for instance, is going to be the level of social charges that you are going to pay. And so this is something quite important. Let's say that I'm coming back to my photographer now. His business is flourishing, and now he's like he has went above the 77,000 euros per year. Let's say that he's clearing 200,000 euros per year of net gross income. The compensation that he's going to pay himself, the social charges applied on this compensation are going to be very different from an SAS structure to an SRL structure. So you have to make sure that you select the one that fits your needs. And I'll just go through one last possibility and one last difference, which is the legal agility that I've raised a little bit before. As I told you before, I'm used to work also with venture firms, and like French subsidiaries of international companies. They most commonly go through the SAS entity because they can choose to adapt the bylaws as much as they want. So you had here a few overview of how does it works and like what are the main difference between these three legal structures. Now we can go through some tax matters to be considered. First, also for the few entrepreneurs that raise this issue about the micro-entreprise, you have to, as I told you, to know that in France we are the champion in tax. So you have sometimes different thresholds between the corporate income tax or the income tax aspect and the VAT aspects. So we have a perfect example here. You are not going to be able to apply like the simplified VAT regime for your micro-entreprise with the same threshold that you are going to apply for the personal income. It's more or less a nightmare, but that's how it is. So you have to make sure that you fit and you follow the rules on this. You also will have to consider the tax regime that can vary between your legal structure. So some tax regimes are available for both. I mean, some legal structures, sorry, offers different tax regimes. So you have to make sure to choose the right one. That's what I've mentioned, for instance, with the SCI, with having the tax transparent entity regime or the corporate income tax regime. It brings some serious signification and some serious variance that you'll have to consider. Some other aspects that you have to consider are the stream of distributions of the wealth that you are going to distribute, that the company is going to distribute to the owner. By that, I mean that you won't be taxed and you won't pay the same social charges on the wealth that you upstream to you as business owner whether it goes as a salary or as a dividend. And so this is something quite complex in France that you'll have to consider. And it may also help you go through one or another of the legal structure. A few figures that I wanted to mention. You know, accountant, we love figures. So something quite not known in France is that we have two CIT rate and one which is quite competitive actually, which is the lower rate. So on the corporate income tax, so the income tax paid by corporation, you have two rates. One for taxable income up to a little bit less than 43,000 euros, which is at 15%. And all the income that is above this 43,000 euros, you are at 25%. In France, we also have some personal income tax, which are dealt with by tranche. So here I gave you the tranches of revenue and for one person and the level of the rate of personal income tax that you are going to pay. And just a quick comparison of, actually, I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's going to be quite complex, but a quick comparison of the SAS versus the SARL, which is the choice that most, for instance, solopreneurs are going to have to make once they've reached the micro-entreprise threshold. They have to create their company, and so they can either go through an SAS or an SARL. As I told you, the social charges are going to be way higher on the SAS because you're facing 70% social charges, whereas you will have only 40% of social charges if you go through an SARL entity. So that's on the salary that you're going to pay, but the tax and the social charges on the dividend that you may pay on top are not going to be the same from one or another entity. So also, it's quite a nightmare. You should make sure to go to the right professional to check this. So that's what I mentioned about the SAS versus SARL basically, and this is like a very key element to consider if you are debating which status you should go. If you want to go, sorry, just one sec. If you want to go with a business that is going to generate monthly and regular wage, you should go through a SARL. If you are going to go for a longer approach with a dividend remuneration, and I will drink after that, you should go through an SAS.
While Loïc is having a glass of water, let me remind you that you have an opportunity, which is pretty sick today, is to get a free call with Loïc. Most CPAs charge to talk to them. You can scan the code at the bottom right. So yeah, it works. And you have a direct link to his agenda for a free one-on-one half an hour with Loïc. And Loïc is back.
Yeah, thank you very much, Romain. Sorry, I promise the tax is going to be much easier if we discuss this in one-to-one. And I will make it easy, whereas now where I'm a bit sick with it. No. So now coming to the second part of this, the first item, which are who are going to be the key stakeholders that will be involved in the process. Stay with us. We have dealt with the most complex and the most complex items with the figures. Now it's going to be quite more a common approach of how things are going to work when you want to open a business in France. So first, you are going to need something quite easy, which is a bank account. So on the bank account, it is going to be dealt with, of course, by a bank. The role of the bank will be to, on one hand, open your first account and then to issue the certificate of deposit of your share capital, which is a legal document that is going to be needed actually to open the business. Then the second part is going to be dealt with either by CPA or by lawyer, which is the preparation of the bylaws and the gathering of all the legal documentation. So as I told you, us French CPA, we are used to perform this kind of services because it is when it's not complex, we can do so. When there are not like too many issues with specific shareholder agreement, this kind of stuff, we can do so. Still, we still manage also with my partner a regular shareholder agreement, but in general, when there are too many complexities, client will want to have their lawyers involved, which is totally fine. And in that case, that's more generally the lawyers that actually prepares the bylaws. Then once the share capital has been deposited, the certificate of deposition has been issued, and the bylaws are ready, you are going, and actually us CPAs, we are going to do that for you, to register within the commercial court in France, the company, so that you can obtain your SIREN number. So the SIREN number, it's the registration number of your company in France. You will see that everywhere. You will see SIREN and SIRET. They are more or less the same numbers. And so they are the proof that you actually have your legal structure exists, and you are going to use this number when you discuss to either any other company for business relation or any social tax or whatever administration in France.
I believe it's like the ITIN in the US, right?
Yes, yes. Or the NIF in Spain, for instance. Yes. So who will do what? As I told you, and what are going to be the steps? Actually, we've dealt through this, but you'll have some choice to make also. First and foremost, for the bank account, now in France, we have some specific neo banks that are like digital banks, but you can also go to more classical banks. We are used to work with both with our clients. The digital one are a little bit faster, but in general, for complex financing structure, going to a classical bank is a smarter choice. You will make your own, but we are used to work with both. Bylaws should be prepared, as I told you, either by the CPA or by the auditor. And you will also have to consider something quite important, which is that maybe within your business, legal auditor will have to be appointed. And in that case, we can help you. We do it on our side for other clients, but we can, for the clients on which we are the CPAs, we work with other audit firm to guide them. A quick explanation of what I've just mentioned, which is a brief introduction of what is the accounting profession, what does the accounting profession look like in France? We have, if I take the comparison with like in the US, you have the CPAs that are going to either do bookkeeping and do some audit and some tax. In France, you have on one hand the expert comptable, which are like in charge of bookkeeping, tax compliance, accounting and tax duty, and any like production work. And you have the legal auditors, which are the ones that are going to audit, to review the work. So there is a Chinese wall, meaning that you cannot do it for the same client, of course, because you need to be independent. They are both licensed professionals with a PhD degree in equivalent. This is also something to keep in mind, which is that in France, CPA is a little bit more complex to obtain than in the rest of the Anglo-Saxon world, because it's like 8 years of study after your baccalaureate, which is quite long. So us, with Alexandre, we are both, meaning that we can either act as expert comptable or as commissaire en compte, but of course never for the same clients. Last warning that I wanted to add, and I will be done for this part, which is I wanted to make sure that you go through the right professional and you avoid the huge risk of working with illegal CPAs. By illegal CPA, what do I mean? I mean that some so-called external accountant or accountant would propose to perform bookkeeping tasks in France. As you may do, for instance, if you are in the US. In the US, anyone can do bookkeeping, but you have to have the right certification to present this to your company or to the tax administration. In France, no one, apart from either the company itself or a registered CPA, can do accounting or tax work, accounting work. So make sure that you are working with the right one. Of course, L2 advisory would be a smart choice, but if you work with other companies, please double check on the website of the accounting board, the chart, the CPA board in France. There is an annuaire on which you can check if the guy that you're talking to is actually a registered CPA with an insurance and that obeys to professional ethics standards. Otherwise, you are facing the risk of working with something that is not somebody that is not professional, that is risking himself some jail time, and that may embezzle the money, which is the huge risk that you have, and that is seen each and every year in France with some companies going bankrupt because the so-called accountant actually took the money that the company was supposed to pay to the tax administration, but that was a scam. So moving now to our third part, which is how to run a company in France. Here we'll mention what are going to be the main compliance and the management duties that you will have to face. So first and foremost, of course, we are going to have to issue some accounting books. So you need to deal with the mandatory accounting and legal requirements and also the tax aspect. But as I told before, accounting is going to be the first pillar of the other compliance issue that you will have to deal with. So you will need to have regular accounting done with bookkeeping done following the French GAPs, so the French generally accepted accounting principles, which is the plan comptable général. You will have to issue annually, which in France we call les comptes annuels, so it's financial statement. It's a document with the balance sheet, the profit and loss, and some notes to explain and so to give some details about the financial statements. And you will have the obligation to deposit this annual account to the commercial court once per year. And as I told before, accounting is going to be the first part of most of the tax work that you will see afterwards. So if we take a step back, first obligation for you to consider having at least once per year your financial statement made and having them agreed by the board of shareholders and then having them deposited to the commercial court. So if you do these two things, at least for the accounting standpoint, you're fine. Then we are going to go on the tax part, which is, okay, what do you need to know, at least what do you need to have in mind? But of course, if you go to the right professional, he will do that for you and he will guide you through all of this. So you'll have to go to one annual corporate income tax statement, which is the CIT, the liasse fiscale. So that's where the net income of your company from a tax standpoint is computed, and basically where we provide all the information that the French tax administration requires on the businesses. So this is done once per year. Generally, we have to file it in May. The second regular form that we'll have to consider are the VAT forms, so the sales tax, more or less. Depending on the amount of turnover and the amount of VAT to be paid, you will have to file them monthly or annually with some installments. Once again, go to the right professional to have the right advice on this. And lastly, the last item, sorry, sundry taxes that you will see in France. We are very creative. The French government are the champion in collecting the money, and it's a reality. We are for instance, most of African countries have based their tax scheme on what has been done in France, because we are the champion in collecting tax. Unfortunately for us, but that's still good for the country maybe. So you will face office tax, land tax, business tax, company car tax, all of them with different deadline within the year, different way to report them to the tax administration. And so make sure also to go to the right CPA to have them dealt with. The legal obligation that you will face, as I told you, you'll have the legal obligation at least to report to the company, the commercial company court, your annual account once per year. And if you hire some employees, you will have to make sure also to comply with all the employment reportings, with monthly reportings, and to make sure that you pay the right amount to the right social security. In France, it is very complex. Just so you know, now in France, the pay slips, there are so many complexity that it doesn't fit in one page. You have to like 2 pages, since there are so many lines with so many split of portion of social charges paid to each and every social body. So it is quite complex. They're often dealt with by CPA firms or by payroll company. And last items on the management is what the CPA are going to help you with. Of course, at least doing the accounting and the tax work, but like that's the first approach, and of course that's why we're here. But we want, and most of good firms now will want to also offer advisory services, meaning that we want to go beyond numbers. And this is the kind of services that you will have when you go to firms like us, not with the firms operating online where you just pay something to have your tax forms dealt with. Of course, it's a good business also for them, and it is like structured so that they can do that at a low cost, but you can't have the dedicated approach and the right advisory with this kind of services. I'm almost done. I hope you're still there. So, a quick conclusion on why I hope you'll choose L2 advisory if you're considering opening a business in France. First of all, of course, we are English-speaking French CPA, so it's going to be way easier for you to communicate with us in English, and even easier when I'm not here. Sorry for this. We operate remotely in France, so no matter where you are, we're based in Paris, but we can work wherever you are in France. We aim to go way further than just numbers. We are going to provide you with as much advisory work as we can, with the wish to like be the trusted business partner that you need for your business to operate in France. And for us, you won't be just another client, meaning that we are firms of two partners with a strong belief in close relationship with our clients. So we want to work with selected clients so that we can make sure that we are available, because that's also something that we have seen in the past, is that we didn't have enough time to help our clients. It is not something that we want anymore. That's why we have launched our firm, to make sure that we are available anytime for our clients. And I haven't spoken enough about the range of services that L2 advisory can provide, but above the CPA services, we can also act as legal auditors if this is something that you consider that you need for your company, since we are both CPAs and commissaires aux comptes at the National Legal Auditor Company. So thank you for listening. We'll have the Q&A session, and just if you need it also, of course, you can still have our contact detail over there with our phone and our email, and you can, of course, scan the QR code so that you can have a direct look at our digital agenda.
I checked, the QR code works. We have few people who asked about the presentation. All of this was recorded, so I'll show you very briefly how to access any webinars on Frenchly. At the top right, you see webinar. You click here and you have all the webinars of French Morning. So, and Frenchly, you can access all of them right here. All right. Now is the time to ask all of your questions. We have couple minutes left, so let's go for it. I don't know if everybody's still with us. Amber, Christian, Claire, Christine, Matthew. We're about a small 15-20 people left, so if you have questions, if you're still listening to us, ask them now. Michelle is asking, how does France define the difference between commercial and non-commercial services, businesses? Would non-commercial equal to non-profit in the US?
Yeah, that's a good one, Michel. So actually, no, it's not exactly this. It's not exactly either the business is going to generate profit or not. It is like more from a legal standpoint, meaning that non-commercial, by essence, are going to be the civilian activity. For instance, if you are a doctor in France, you are not conducting a commercial activity. So in general, the non-commercial activity are the one that will be provided by civilian activities such as lawyers, doctors, this kind of profession. So basically, if you're opening a general business, normally it should be a business activity, not a non-business activity. I hope it helped.
Mike, if my company wants to hire employees in France, does it have to open a local subsidiary?
That's a good one, Mike. So on this, no, not necessarily, meaning that it will depend on what will this employee be doing, but you can go toward what is called a permanent establishment. So if, let's say, you are like maybe you are in the US and you want to hire an employee that want to work remotely from France, if this employee is not going to have like enough autonomy or maybe enough the possibility to engage the company at the local aspect, then you don't need a subsidiary. Otherwise, it could be good because you are going to fall into the permanent establishment scheme, which is sometimes tricky to understand that, for instance, it doesn't have any legal existence, but you have to perform all the tax compliance work. So I would say it depends, which is quite not a clear question, but no, you don't need necessarily to open a subsidiary. You can still start with just a permanent establishment. And if you have any question like this is something on which we advise our clients, and which is quite common to have like one employee that is in France because of the personal reason, and companies want to make sure that they are fine with the social obligation. So that's something that we are used to do.
We have a question from Matthew. What is the best legal form for opening a subsidiary of an international group in France?
So that's something that will I think that I'd say that will depend also, but most from what I see in general will have either an SAS or an SARL. But more generally, now it is quite common. So the SAS means Société par Action Simplifiée, so simplified company with shares. And within this simplified approach, it is something that is quite searched for by large companies, meaning that you have full agility to customize the bylaws as you want. So in general, this is something that is more common to see SAS entity being used to open their subsidiaries in France.
All right. If you have any additional question, it's the time to ask them now because we're going to close very soon this session. I closed the chat, but you can ask them in the Q&A section. It's right below here. If you have any questions on YouTube, ask them now. Randall has a question. Do any of the businesses entities have similar liability protection like LLCs in the US?
Yes, so on this, which is more like a legal question, as soon as you take like a specific, like a legal structure which a limited liability, you will obtain the same approach as the LLC in US. So if I take the example in the other way, there are only a few legal structure in France that do not limit the liability of the shareholders. So if you go through an SARL or an SAS, which are the two entities that I mentioned, you will have the same limitation of liability for the shareholders than what you see with an LLC in the US.
We have an anonymous attendee saying something common that I see on Facebook groups is that a US citizen can move to France with a C Corp based in the US and simply open a French ME and pay themselves from their C Corp, effectively keeping them in the simplified regime while treating their C Corp as their US client. And perhaps they have one more client to be compliant with the ME requirement that you have more than one. Yeah. I'm sure it is more complex than a simply yes or no, but broadly, would you say this is legal from a French tax law perspective?
As I'm a good professional, I won't answer this because it's too complex to even go broadly than a yes or no. And as soon as you are dealing with intercompany transaction, I mean multi-company, multi-country, company with living in the US, working in France, and the opposite, and having quite both, it's more or less a nightmare. You'll have to like face to keep on even your personal income, even if you're still in France, you'll have to keep if you're a US citizen, sorry, you'll have to keep on performing some US declaration. So we work with dedicated tax lawyers specialized in US French regulation on this, because it is something that we, as French CPA, we are not going to risk providing with the wrong answer because it's too complex. So on this, if we don't have, and that's something quite common also that we see with our clients, is that sometimes questions are too complex or like tax implications are too risky, And in that case, we have the right professional, the network of professionals within our network. So we are used to work with notaries, with tax advisors, with even transfer pricing lawyers, which we are really used to work with because these are really complex matters that need to be dealt with by specialists.
And as you know, we've said it multiple times, Loïc is giving a half hour of his free time just for you. So if you go back, you can scan the code to his calendar and take a one-on-one meeting with him. I'm sure it will be easier also to talk about these really specific situations and topics. We'll close with a last question from Christian. Does the president of the subsidiary in France needs to be a French citizen or live in France?
So normally, yes, normally the legal representative of a company should live in France and should be able to represent the company within the country. So of course you can still consider that you can do both. Like if you live in the US, you could open a company while living in the US in France. But from a practical standpoint, normally you should you should appoint a legal representative that actually live in France.
And I saw Christian had another question about the neobanks. You mentioned them earlier.
Are they
Is it
okay?
okay to work with them?
Yeah, they do good work on some aspects. They've been able to like move a little bit and the way regular banks have digitalized themselves. So I would say yes, they are okay, but typically for like complex intercompany transaction or like intercompany charts sorry, in intercountry charts with dependency between US and France subsidiaries, I would not be surprised that it's going to be above their limitation because neobanks, more or less, they are going to be like low cost or with like structured approach. They sell structured services. If you are below the box, it's not going to work for them.
They might not even take you, right?
Yeah.
All right. I think we answered most of the questions. If you have any additional question, feel free to reach out to Loïc and schedule a one-on-one with him. Thank you, merci Loïc for your time and this very in-depth presentation. I hope you'll be back to answer and talk about more French CPA topics in the future. Thank you again. Have a lovely day, and I'll talk to you soon next week.
Thank you very much.
Merci Loïc.
Merci.
Bye bye.